You don't forget the sound of a restaurant going silent after your wife hits you. It's a sound that slices straight through laughter, through music, through the clinking of champagne glasses. One sharp crack, skin on skin, and the world just stops. I remember staring at her. Lauren. The woman I married 6 years earlier in a chapel filled with white lilies and promises. Her hand still hovering midair, eyes wide, chest rising fast, like even she couldn't believe what she'd done. But she had. And I'd finally seen what everyone else already knew. That night was supposed to be our anniversary dinner. A celebration. Her idea, of course, an upscale place she loved, the kind of spot where you order from a menu without prices. We were surrounded by her friends, not mine, people who laughed too loud and lived for the sound of their own voices. I never really fit in, but that never stopped Lauren from showing me off like a trophy she regretted winning. Halfway through the meal, she told a story about how she'd basically saved one of my client presentations by rewriting a few slides at the last minute. Everyone laughed, called her brilliant, asked why she didn't run my business instead. I smiled. I always smiled. But I corrected her, gently. Actually, the slides she mentioned were from a different client, months earlier. She hadn't been involved in that one. I should have known better. Her face shifted, just slightly, from amusement to fury. "Oh, I'm sorry," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Did I forget how lucky I am to be married to the almighty Eric who's never wrong?" I didn't answer. I didn't have time to. The slap came out of nowhere, sharp, echoing, final. Every fork froze midair. The couple at the next table turned. Someone gasped. A waiter dropped a glass somewhere behind me, and it shattered like punctuation. Lauren's friends stared at their plates. Nobody said a word. I didn't shout. I didn't even touch my cheek. I just reached for my wallet, pulled out my card, and handed it to the waiter. "Dinner's on me," I said quietly. He hesitated, glancing at Lauren, but I nodded. As I signed the receipt, I could feel her eyes on me, confused, maybe even scared. She started to say something, but I was already standing. "Happy anniversary," I said, and walked out. The night air hit me like a wave of cold truth. I stood outside the restaurant, hearing muffled voices and clinking glasses inside, and realized that somewhere along the way, I'd stopped existing in my own marriage. I'd become background noise, the man who paid, the man who drove, the man who apologized. I walked home without knowing why. Habit, maybe. When I opened the door, the house looked like a stranger's, sterile, curated, expensive. Everything she'd ever wanted. Nothing I had chosen. Our wedding photo was still on the wall, Lauren smiling wide, me holding her hand like it meant something eternal. I took it down, stared at it for a long minute, then set it face down on the table. In our bedroom, her perfume hung in the air, sweet, suffocating. I pulled an old duffel bag from the closet and started packing. A few shirts, my laptop, a hard drive, the small stash of cash I kept in a drawer. No dramatic goodbye. No note. Just silence. It wasn't anger that guided me. It was clarity. The kind that comes when you finally stop making excuses for someone who never saw you as an equal. Around midnight, I drove away. No destination. Just roads and headlights. I slept in the car that night, parked behind a gas station 2 towns over. The next morning, I found a cheap motel, checked in under a fake name, and stared at the ceiling for hours. Lauren called. Then again. Then she texted. I didn't answer. A part of me wanted to explain, to shout, to tell her how small I'd felt for years. But another part, the one that had been dying slowly, finally whispered, enough. So I turned off the phone. That's when the fear hit, not of losing her, but of starting over. I was 31, broke, with nothing but a degree, a laptop, and a bruised ego. But I also had something I hadn't felt in years, control. I drove until the city lights faded behind me and the highway opened into darkness. I didn't know where I was going, only that I was never going back. As the sun came up, I stopped at a diner off the interstate. The waitress poured me coffee and smiled like she'd seen 1,000 lost men before. "Long night?" she asked. "Long marriage," I said. She laughed softly. "You'll be all right. Guys who order black coffee usually are." I looked out the window at the endless road and realized she was right. Lauren's voice, her friends, that restaurant, all of it was behind me now. And somewhere out there, beyond the next exit, was the version of me I was supposed to become. By the time I finished my coffee, I had a plan, or maybe just a direction. I'd find a small apartment, start freelancing again, take on whatever work I could get. Build something of my own, even if it killed me trying. I left the tip on the counter and walked out into the rising light. For the first time in years, I didn't feel humiliated. I didn't feel small. I felt free. By morning, I was a ghost she'd never find again. Freedom sounds romantic until you realize it's just silence and rent due. I moved to a small city 300 miles away, not because I'd planned it, but because that's where the gas ran out. I found a one-room apartment above a pawn shop, the kind of place where the walls were thin and the floor creaked like it remembered better tenants. The rent was cheap, the air smelled like dust and burnt coffee, and somehow, it felt like peace. I got a second-hand desk from the alley, wiped the grime off my old laptop, and started over. I didn't have a business plan. Just desperation and a Wi-Fi signal strong enough to steal from the cafe downstairs. During the day, I cold emailed strangers offering digital marketing work, logo design, ad copy, anything. At night, I read books about branding, psychology, and storytelling. I slept on the floor because I didn't have a bed. I ate instant noodles because I couldn't afford anything else. And I worked 18 hours a day because it was the only way I didn't have to think about her. The first few months were brutal. No clients, no responses, no certainty. I was living off cheap coffee and borrowed time. But then one night, around 2 a.m., something clicked. A small skincare startup had posted on a freelancer forum looking for a marketing idea. Their budget was laughable, but I needed the job. I stayed up all night building a social media campaign that used real customers before and after selfies instead of stock photos, honest, raw, unfiltered. I called it Your Real Skin. It went viral. Not overnight, but close enough. The post hit 1 million views in a week. The company's sales tripled. They sent me a thank you email and a bonus that covered 2 months' rent. That was the first time in years I smiled for real. Not a polite smile. A mind smile. Word spread. Small clients turned into bigger ones. Bigger ones introduced me to people who didn't care where I came from, only that I delivered results. I called the company Nova Digital. Started as a one-man show, but within a year, I hired 2 designers, then 5, then 15. By year 3, we were running campaigns for tech startups in San Francisco, fashion brands in Milan, even one of the car giants in Germany. Our ads were on screens I'd never seen in person. My apartment turned into an office, then into a building. I never once reached out to Lauren. But sometimes, in the quiet hours between deadlines, I'd see that restaurant again. The look on her face. The slap. The silence. And I'd push harder. Pain can destroy you. Or it can sharpen you into something no one recognizes. I chose the second. There were nights I didn't sleep for days. Times I burned through contracts, learned from failure, and started again. I didn't chase happiness, I chased momentum. Success became my form of revenge, not against her, but against the version of me who thought he had to stay. The irony was, the world saw confidence, charisma, vision. They called me a self-made entrepreneur. But in truth, I was built on humiliation. Every award, every deal, every new office, it all came from the echo of that slap. One morning, 5 years later, I woke up in a penthouse apartment overlooking the skyline. Floor-to-ceiling windows, espresso machine I didn't know how to use, suits tailored to a man I barely recognized. My calendar was booked 6 months ahead. My company was now international, hundreds of employees, clients across continents. A magazine wanted me on their cover. Their headline, The Man Who Redefined Modern Marketing. I looked at the draft photo they sent, me in a gray suit, confident smile, city lights behind me, and almost laughed. If you'd told that guy eating noodles on the floor that one day his face would be printed on billboards, he'd have called you insane. But here I was. And for the first time, I felt nothing. No joy, no pride. Just a strange calm. Because deep down, I knew it wasn't about fame or money. It was about closure, and I wasn't sure I'd ever really had it. A few weeks later, I got invited to speak at a marketing conference back in my old city. The same city I swore I'd never set foot in again. My assistant thought it'd be poetic, full-circle moment, she said. I told her to book it. I didn't tell her that part of me wanted to see if ghosts still existed there. When I landed, the air smelled the same, a mix of rain, traffic, and old memories. The city hadn't changed much, but I had. I checked into a luxury hotel downtown, opened the curtains, and froze. Across the street, on a 50-foot billboard, was my face. My company's new campaign. Tagline, Build Your Own Future. People were stopping to take pictures with it. Some pointed, some smiled. I stood there for a long time, watching strangers look up at me like I was someone worth admiring. The man she'd slapped had disappeared. This one was untouchable. That night, as I walked to the conference hall, I caught my reflection in the glass of a cafe window. Sharp suit. Confident stride. A faint scar of something invisible still behind my eyes. I thought about how strange life is, how one humiliating moment can rewrite your entire story if you let it. I was about to step inside when my phone buzzed. It was a message from an old friend, someone I hadn't heard from in years. Hey, man. Crazy seeing your ads everywhere. By the way, ran into Lauren a while back. She's divorced now. Business went under. Looks like karma finally showed up. I stared at the message for a while, unreadable emotion flickering somewhere deep. Then, another notification popped up. A message request. From Lauren. Hey. It's been a long time. Can we talk? I smiled faintly. The universe, it seemed, had a perfect sense of irony. My face was on every billboard in town. 5 years ago, I was just another man disappearing into the night. Now I was the man staring back from glass towers and bus stops. It was surreal. Walking through those same streets that once swallowed me whole, only this time, the city couldn't ignore me. Taxi drivers recognized me from the ads. A barista asked for a selfie. My company slogan, "Build Your Own Future," was plastered above the same avenue where Lauren and I used to argue in the car about nothing and everything. I didn't feel pride. I felt distance, like I was watching a movie of someone else's life. That evening, the conference began. It was a sleek, high-end event, LED lights, polished floors, free champagne. CEOs, influencers, and startup founders mingled, trading stories about markets and algorithms. When I took the stage, I didn't use slides. Just my story, not the whole truth, but the part that mattered. How failure isn't the end, it's the teacher. How pain can be the most effective motivator if you let it burn clean instead of consuming you. The audience applauded like I'd handed them a secret formula. Cameras flashed. My PR team smiled from the back. And when I stepped off stage, I saw her. Not in person, yet. But in a flashback so vivid it felt physical. The restaurant. The laughter that turned to silence. That moment that rewired my entire life. I excused myself from the afterparty early. The noise felt too artificial, too loud for the quiet ache crawling up my spine. Back in the hotel suite, I opened my laptop to clear emails, and there it was again. Her message request, still unread. Hey. It's been a long time. Can we talk? 5 words. 5 years apart. It took me longer to move my cursor toward accept than it had to build a company. I clicked. Her profile photo was recent, older, sharper. The effortless confidence she once had was gone, replaced by something else. Weariness. Regret, maybe. I didn't reply. Just scrolled through the empty space where conversations used to be. The last message I'd ever sent her was a grocery list. I closed the laptop. But I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I went for a walk through the city. Same streets, same noise, same smell of roasted coffee and wet asphalt after rain. Every block felt like walking through an echo chamber. I passed the restaurant, that restaurant. It was still there, same warm lights, same expensive menu. For a second, I almost walked in, just to see if anyone remembered. But I didn't need to. The ghost of that night was enough. My phone buzzed again. Lauren. I saw your face on a billboard today. You look different. I'm glad you made it. Maybe we could grab coffee? Just to catch up. Just to catch up. Like she hadn't detonated my life in front of an audience. I almost ignored it. But curiosity, that old, stubborn spark, wouldn't let me. Not because I wanted her back. Because I wanted to see what time had done to her. So I typed back. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Cafe Meridian. Downtown. Then I put my phone away. That night, I barely slept. Not out of anxiety, out of anticipation. The kind that comes before closure. The next morning, the city was washed in soft sunlight. I wore a simple black shirt, no watch, no pretense. Just me. Cafe Meridian was quiet, the kind of place with jazz playing too softly and waiters who moved like ghosts. I got there 10 minutes early, ordered coffee, sat by the window. And then she walked in. Lauren. She looked smaller. Not physically, but in presence. Her once perfect hair was pulled back, her clothes plain. No friends, no laughter, no entourage. When her eyes found mine, she froze for a second, like she hadn't expected me to actually show. Then she smiled, the kind of practiced smile that used to charm entire rooms. Eric, she said softly, sliding into the seat across from me. You look incredible. I nodded once. You look, well. She laughed quietly, nervously. Well, that's generous. The silence between us was a living thing. She fidgeted with her napkin, searching for words. I let her drown in the quiet. I've seen you everywhere, she said finally. Billboards, interviews, that magazine cover. You really did it, huh? I did. I always knew you had it in you, she said, smiling like we were partners again, like she hadn't broken me in front of strangers. I used to tell people you were brilliant. Guess I was right. I didn't answer. Just watched her eyes flicker, searching for warmth that wasn't there. She sighed, leaning back. I messed up, Eric. I know that. I was angry, insecure, stupid. I shouldn't have done what I did that night. Her voice cracked slightly. You didn't deserve that. For a moment, I almost felt something, pity, maybe. But then I remembered standing in that restaurant, the sting on my face, the silence afterward. Some wounds don't heal, they just stop bleeding. She reached for her cup, hands trembling slightly. I didn't call you to ask for forgiveness, she said. I don't know. I miss the man you used to be. I looked at her then, really looked. And I saw not the woman who slapped me, but the one who once said she loved me, and somewhere along the way, forgot what that meant. I opened my mouth to answer, but stopped. Not yet. Not until she truly understood. The waiter came to refill our cups. I nodded for the check. Lauren frowned. You're leaving already? I smiled faintly. You'll understand why. The waiter laid the bill on the table. I took it, signed it, and set it down. Just like last time. I met her eyes and said quietly, that man you miss, he died the night you slapped him. Then I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked out. Outside, sunlight bounced off the cafe window, catching the reflection of the billboard across the street, my face, smiling, confident, untouchable. Through the glass, I saw her watching me go. And for the first time since that night, I felt peace, not revenge, not satisfaction. Just quiet. The silence that used to hurt now felt like freedom. When I walked out of that cafe, I thought it was over. I'd said my line, paid the bill, and walked away, full circle. But closure, I learned, isn't something you find in a coffee cup. It's something you build. A week after that meeting, I was back in my office when my CFO dropped a file on my desk. Small acquisition prospect, he said. Fashion retail. Used to be big 5 years ago, but now it's drowning in debt. We could buy the assets cheap and flip them. I skimmed the first page, and froze. LJ Atelier. Lauren's company. The one she'd built on borrowed money and arrogance, the one that collapsed when she stopped paying attention to anything but appearances. It felt almost staged, like the universe wasn't done with its sense of irony. Let's buy it, I said. My CFO raised an eyebrow. It's practically worthless. Then it'll be a bargain. He shrugged and walked out. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about her face at the cafe, the forced smile, the flicker of regret. I didn't hate her. Not anymore. But I couldn't deny the part of me that wanted her to see what she'd thrown away. Within 2 weeks, the deal was done. Nova Digital quietly acquired LJ Atelier's trademarks, inventory, and assets through a shell corporation. The lawyers handled everything. Lauren never saw my name anywhere on the paperwork. By month's end, her company officially ceased to exist. We rebranded it under our creative division, new logo, new vision, new success. The irony? We used her old clientele list to rebuild it from the ground up. Under Nova's umbrella, it thrived again, just without her name on the door. She didn't find out until the press release. 3 months later, a journalist called to confirm a rumor. Is it true your agency acquired LJ Atelier? I smiled. Yes. It had potential. Just needed better leadership. The article went viral overnight. 2 days later, I got an email. From her. You bought my company? I typed back. Technically, I saved it. She didn't reply right away. But the next morning, my assistant buzzed me. There's a woman in the lobby. Says her name is Lauren. Should I send her away? I paused. No. Let her in. When she entered my office, she looked nothing like the woman I once knew. The confidence was gone, the defiance replaced by something quieter, humiliation mixed with disbelief. You really did it, she said softly, eyes darting to the wall lined with Nova awards. You bought my company. I nodded. Business decision. Her jaw tightened. You didn't have to do that. I didn't have to do a lot of things, I said. But sometimes opportunity knocks. I just answered. She took a shaky breath. You could have told me. I leaned back in my chair. Would you have listened? Silence. She looked around the office, the skyline view, the staff beyond the glass. You turned it around. LJ Atelier's getting good press again. Yeah, I said. Turns out all it needed was someone who didn't treat people like they were disposable. Her eyes glistened. Is this revenge, Eric? Is that what this is? I smiled faintly. Revenge? No. This is business. The revenge was waking up every day knowing you thought I'd stay broken. She swallowed hard, words stuck behind pride and regret. I stood, walked around the desk, and handed her a manila envelope. Inside's a letter from our legal team. You'll find a full payout for your remaining shares, generous, considering their value. You're officially free from anything with your name on it. She hesitated. Why are you giving me money? Because I can afford to, I said simply. She stared at me, eyes red. You really did change. No, I said quietly. I just stopped letting people take credit for my work or my worth. I opened the office door, motioning politely. Take care, Lauren. She walked out without another word. When the elevator doors closed behind her, I felt lighter. Not triumphant. Just done. That night, I stood on my balcony overlooking the city. The streets below buzzed with life, buses rolled by with my ads plastered on their sides. I thought about how full circle it had all come, how the man who once walked out of a restaurant humiliated now owned the skyline. I raised my glass to the night. To pain. To persistence. To poetic justice. A few months later, Nova's quarterly report showed record profits. LJ Atelier's revival under our brand was the highlight. Journalists called it a resurrection story. Lauren? She moved out of the city, according to a mutual friend. Started teaching design classes at a small college. Quiet life. I didn't feel the urge to reach out. Because revenge had already done its job, it erased her power over me. One evening, I walked past a boutique window displaying the new LJ Atelier line, minimalist, elegant, successful. A couple nearby admired the collection. Didn't that brand almost go bankrupt? The woman asked. Yeah, her friend replied. Some new agency took over. Guy named Eric Cole runs it now. Genius move. I smiled and kept walking. For the first time since that slap, I didn't feel anger. I felt peace, the kind that comes when the world finally knows what you've always known. You were never the problem. The silence that once haunted me now hummed with satisfaction. Because real revenge isn't shouting back. It's owning the room they once kicked you out of. And this time, I wasn't just in the room. I owned the whole building.